Yo guys, and welcome back to another Spore creation video. And for today's video we are creating Jack Skellington from A Nightmare Before Christmas. Now this is obviously in the Halloween theme, and I can imagine a lot of you probably thinking it's only the 1st of October, this is a little bit early or a little bit out of place. And I don't know about you guys, but I've always felt like that as soon as October hits, as soon as we get to the 1st of October, there's always a big hype for Halloween. And especially in my Discord community, I see it like really rise up the most during the beginning of the month. Kind of quietens down for a while, and then about a week or so before Halloween actually hits, the hype comes again. And not only that, but also just had I just also wanted to make something a little bit more simple, a little bit more on the classical side, which I thought Jack Skellington would be a very, very good example of. Overall, I just thought it'd be a quite nice timing and just overall quite appropriate, and hopefully something very familiar. Now, it's always funny, like I said, I wanted to make something a little bit more simple, and I've said it before, I'll say it again. Making simple things in Spore is incredibly it never goes how you'd expect. Especially with the kind of creation like this, but it's just basically, in essence, it's just a very tall, very slim figure with a very simple face in a black and white suit. So you'd think that would be super duper simple. Well, no, Spore gets me once again. In the end, the biggest struggle I had was the outfits, which you guys will see, further on in the video. But also just showing the proportions, because upon, close inspection of Jack Skellington's body, especially around his torso, he has, like the big round rib cage, which goes into an incredibly thin and very, very long pelvis into the legs. And it's obviously an exaggerated posture, it's an exaggerated anatomy, because of course, it's a bit of a cartoonish figure. But again, in Spore, it's a really, really hard thing to translate, especially in such a way that's going to animate. So I had to do like a bit of fiddling around with the limbs, with the lower half of the torso and the spine, and of course the smoother. I think I've got to like a bit of a decent balance in the end. It's a little bit bony, not quite as smooth as I'd like it to be. But again, given the limitations, I think it's quite alright. The head was a bit of a fun one, actually. The head was again like quite deceptive, because I thought the head would be like a little bit more simple, but again it was a little bit more tricky, mainly due to the shape than anything else. Since Jack's face it looks like a sphere, but then a closer inspection, the lower half of his jaw is like a bit flatter or a bit wider, which again is something very tricky to do in Spore, because you get spheres easily enough, but you don't really get ovals or egg shapes or, spheres like a little bit more exaggerated in certain angles. So that again was a little bit tricky to do. I did try to make his lower jaw a little bit bulkier. I think it may have come across a bit weird. I'm really hoping that the mouth will distract away from it. I quite like the proportion of the eyes and the nose. I think overall all of that is quite fitting. But yeah, it's just the jaw that gets me. And what is a Spore creation of mine without a bit of a hiccup here and there? So these orange parts I'm currently using. The orange parts of size Pandora's Toolbox, the way they're meant to work is that they are meant to inherit the base colour of the creation. Currently the creation is white, which means that the orange parts are meant to inherit white. Therefore, when I then make the suit black, or the base colour black, once again, the orange spheres are meant to inherit the black colour. Now, I did have to completely and utterly reinstall my Spore just yesterday, which is why, again, I want to make something a little bit more simple, that way I can ease myself back in, because I've been really struggling and just trying to fix Spore as much as I can after a bit of a issue with the installation. And I don't know if it's a result of my mods or not, or if something's gone wrong or whatever, but these orange parts end up being completely orange regardless of how I textured them. Again, they're meant to inherit the base colour, and they did, but with a very strong orange tint. So in the end, it's a bit annoying, but off camera I had to completely and meticulously replace every part with the base, like the recolouring part. There's 4 parts in total with Pandora's Toolbox, all of which inherit colours. One of them inherits like all colours in a way, whereas the other 3 kind of inherit specifically chosen colours. It's a little bit tricky to describe in words, but it's, any of you have seen the mod or seen me use it dozens of times before, you'll recognise it. So, moving on, after fixing that hiccup, next up we come to the stripes of the suit. And that was another thing that just ended up being absolutely deceptively difficult. I always have to worry about the complexity, and it's becoming quite clear, even just in this little exercise here, that I really can't have enough stripes to cover the entirety of the suit. But a bit of an unexpected thing I noticed is that as I was adding more and more of the stripes into the suit, the stripes ended up having like a bit of a a bit of an eye burn effect. It was really uncomfortable to look at, and in the end, I just didn't really like it. As well as, like I said, complexity. I don't think I'd really have been able to successfully get, you know, that stripy texture all the way through. I don't think I could have done it in the entire suit. So I did have to make a sacrifice in that way. But like I said though, like maybe I could have just made the stripes a little bit thinner, but then they'll be a lot harder to deal with. Then I'd have to have like a much greater quantity. And therefore, once again, the issue of the complexity meter comes in more and more, quicker and quicker. So in the end, I did have to just completely get rid of them. But you can see right now that it does kind of hurt to look at. Spore unfortunately makes it very pixelated, which again just looks really ghastly. Overall, not really ideal. And it's unfortunate because my ending solution, which was manipulating the textures in a way to make a little subtle ideas and representations of, you know, straps and such here and there, while I think it does nail it quite nicely, it just is nowhere near good enough. It doesn't have the big, you know, the big bright stripes that you recognise in the suits. But again, it is Spore. And we can see the final outcome here, which I have to admit does look a little bit bare. But, like I said, this creation, for as simple an idea as it was, really was surprisingly challenging because of the anatomy, because of the shape of the head, all the little intricate details here and there. And funnily enough, the boots ended up being the easiest part, as did the lower end of the cape. It's not really a cape, is it? It's more like part of the tuxedo suit. I'm not sure what the correct term for that is, but you know, those parts ended up being the easiest, and of course the bow tie and the white chest in the middle. But yeah, like I said, the anatomy, the striping, the clothing, it was tricky. It was a little bit disappointing, I have to admit. But when I look at the overall finished creation here, it does have a bit of a nice, you know, more classical feel to it, which I do like. So I am happy with that. So it looks a little bit cuter. At the beginning, as I was making it, it looked very, very creepy. So I like that a little bit cuter now. The limbs, or the hands more, like I understand that they're kind of like in a rigid pose. I know not a lot of people like that, but trust me, my experience of making a lot of creations, having really, really long, lanky limbs kind of just moving all over the place, while he does that in the movie, it looks very strange in Spore, and I really thought that having a rigid position of his hands on his hips would just overall suits the character more. So there we have it. I hope you enjoyed the creation, and let me know your thoughts in the comments down below. The engagement always truly helps, not to mention I like reading what you say. I hope you're all looking forward to Halloween, and as always, I will catch you all next time. Thank you very much, and cheers.